In the first podcast, I said that denial was the supplicating. A person was in denial when they were supplicating because they think that they're a good person. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm taking her out to eat, but you're buying that girl's attention. To expound upon that, it sounds like denial because you're not a person doing that we wouldn't be taking in the full reality that you, that anybody, anytime you're using anything to attract anybody, even your body. Like I was just thinking about this. If I'm attracted to a chick, the second stage is all about what the person, what's happening, what the person is doing. That's all it is. I'm not gonna talk about this by male and female. I'm just gonna combine the two because men and women are gonna go through the same thing. Women might look at it a little bit differently, like the guy has balls who's taking action, and guys are gonna look at it a little differently, like, well, the girl has a job. But all it really each one is looking at is what the person is doing, and supplication can reveal itself from any target where you're doing something to get it. So a guy might be like, he might not want to spend money. Like, I won't spend money on a stranger. I really won't unless they really need it and I'm helping. And I mean, there's a greater thing happening. I'm not just going to give somebody money or be like, oh, I want them to do this. But it's more like, in certain circumstances, a lot of logistics will have to be handled. But if I were to use my body to attract a woman, I would also be supplicating. It's like, well, I can share my body, right? But money is like, oh, I got to go work for that. I mean, your body is also a resource. Your body has a finite set of properties to it, just like your wallet does. But some people feel like it's easier to share their body than it is for money. So prostitutes and hoes are willing to sleep around and, get a higher thought process going on, saying, hey, you fucking for free when you could be fucking for a fee. But it's still work. I mean, that's what work is. Your body, your resources, we're just allocating it to something that we're able to put up with. Some of us might feel like the money comes and goes easily. So that's why you got tricks. Tricks got game too, but tricks be willing to spend for it. But that's what supplication's all about. So the best way to not get used would be, I would say, it all comes back to your persona. And if you're the best persona, I would honestly say, would be to show what you're doing, to show what you're working on. Because if you're attracted to somebody and you're like, oh, okay, let me show them what I got, right? A woman's got big ass titties, so all of a sudden, like, more men are drawn to her and want to fuck. And so she's going, why can't I find a good guy? And then she gets baggage when she gets used. And so she walks around covering him up until she wants to go out for the night. Then she shows him again. And the reality is, if all you do is show what you got to offer, it's going to attract people who want to use it. So the idea of being attractive is a double-edged sword because you can be used for that. So a lot of us are taught to show off our best qualities. A lot of us are taught straight up, hey, let me show everybody like how smart I am. I want to be known for how smart I am, or I want to be known for how successful I am. Let me flash this money. I mean, dudes get used for money because you flash your money. You show, you want to walk around, you want to mac on these hoes and show how well dressed you are. Whether you are in an expensive suit or you flashing like gold and diamonds, you got 50K on your wrist. All those things are just social indicators that you got it like that. But you're also pulling attention for people who want you for that. So why not have a persona that, instead of showing everything we got and then selecting among the deceivers in the first stage, why don't we just show off what we're working for cooperatively? when we hear about the anima and animus, we learn that that is our inner man as a woman, and as a man, that's our inner woman, and that's just how we approach the opposite sex. I went into how we go through these stages of shadows. Well, and I relate these shadows back to how we the types of relationships we get involved. Well, I was getting into how do we even use our anima? How do we even access it, and how does it relate to going through these stages in the first place? Well, when you learn your MBTI type, you're there are just 8 different functions of reality, and they start off and they go in this order: hero, parent, child, anima or animus, competitive, combative, supplicative, and demon or deceptive. You'll find different terminologies for these all over, but I'm just going to give it to you my way. I'm coming at it from the standpoint of navigating life through synchronicity. It's ultimately about synchronicity. And these 8 functions are just how we interact with reality. And when you find your MBTI type, this is just the order of how you engage life from these 8 angles. I count 9 chakras. The ninth one is how you connect to God, which is through faith, which I like to start off with people understanding your 8 functions though. So when you hear people talk about like their MBTI, you can Google that, you can do various tests. Don't just trust the tests. You really got to ask yourself deeper questions about the functions really to find your true type. And then when you find your true type, you begin to understand you can automatically get to know what your 8 functions are. Though a lot of people don't talk about the 8 functions, they just stop at the first 4. And Personality Hacker is a great tool to use when you go to them, and you can just watch their videos and ask yourself these questions and find out, or you can sign up for one of the programs. And we're not affiliated during the recording of this video, so I've just went through them through my first. That's how I learned about them. I learned about it through the Tao Badass and learning about how to date multiple women, and how you pinpoint personality types quickly. And I combine it with what I already know. Ever since my senior year of college, I went on a mission to understand others' behaviors, especially when it came to the dating thing. As it came up later, I went through the whole enlightenment journey, then kind of fell off in the dating multiple women aspects, and that's how I ended up applying. In retrospect, when I looked at my anima or my 4th function, I had to kind of ask these questions, because for anybody listening, you're going to want to learn, once you figure out what your inner woman is, so you can improve the way you date or whatever. Once you use your animus, why would you, like, how would you even connect to it in the first place, right? So Personality Hacker teaches us that car model concept, where I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm an INFP, so my first 4 functions would be what I feel, what others want, what I experience, and what others think. They use them as what I feel is AKA authenticity, and then what others want is exploration or extroverted intuition. So you'll learn like there's FI, NE, SI, which is introverted sensing, which is what I experience, or memory, they call it. And then the 4th function for me would be TE, which is what others think, or extroverted thinking, which they codename effectiveness. So using myself as an example, the idea from Personality Hacker is your first 2 functions are, think of a box, It's like being in the first, being two drivers in a car, or a driver in a car, and then the co-pilot. The driver is being your hero function. Your first function is your hero. This is the easiest function to connect with reality. It's our primary use of reality. This is where we get our energy. So we show up like a hero. I have my biggest strength is involved in my personal reflection. So what I feel I am the best at, in understanding my motivations, understanding why am I the way that I am, as far as like what I value in life and my inspirations and, you know, my dreams in a way. Not necessarily what I want. That's a little bit different. It's more about what I value, which can seem very similar. They may have a lot of parallels because they're both introverted functions, but just for the sake of understanding how I got to this, the idea is your first two functions, you combine your hero, which they call your driver, with your parent function, which they call your co-pilot. And that's how you enter your genius flow state. So as a introvert, I would get the most energy when I'm involved in something that deals with me, which is why they say we go alone, we get alone time, and then I get energy. So if we're ever feeling depressed, I would have to be by myself where I can reflect upon what I feel, get my values, and then all of a sudden I'm energized and I'm ready for the world again. But when I develop my co-pilot of what others want, I grow as a person. So I get to expand my horizons. I get to go out into life and gain a larger worldview. Since it's an intuitive process, that's why they would call me an intuitive. That's where the N comes from in the INFP. So introverted, intuitive, which just means I prefer pattern recognition over experience. So, and then feeling, which would be emotion, as opposed to the T, which would be thinking, more logistic. And then the P just means perceiver, which relates more to being interiorly organized and outwardly chaotic. So I live a more adventurous life where I travel. I don't have I have routines, but my lifestyle is less based on routines. So the way you develop external intuition is what they call exploration, where I go out and I involve myself with new activities, and then I end up seeing the patterns between them. And I can ask any seemingly random question and connect two topics together, see how they are similar and how they're different. And they mentioned before that travel is what you want to do. So I mean, everything around me is changing when I travel, every situation. And all these functions have opposites, and that's how we get to the backseat functions, or the third and the fourth. So the third function is the opposite of the second function. So with the second function being the parent, this is like, okay, you got the driver, and then the co-pilot is seeing everything the driver doesn't see. That parent is the part of us that shows up to help others. So that in combination, what I feel and what others want, it helps me to show up for the world as not only like a larger worldview with what I feel, but it helps me to not be autistic and just stuck in my heart and projecting all these ideas on the rest of the world of, oh, everybody cares about this. You know, everybody wants to have long hair and you know, be muscular and healthy and help each other. And everyone's in different positions, and everyone has different strengths. So when I'm involved with the intuition process, intuition you can think of as wants, because want as like an idea of where is it headed, because it's not just other people, it's other things, consciousness in general. Where is it heading to? You know, if you see the patterns and you notice this pattern, we see where it's heading to. That's what it wants. So I'm looking at what other things that are not me, what they want. And I'm looking at everything and I'm connecting as many things as possible in a pattern way. So when I travel, I start to notice, okay, the East Coast, they're a lot more hard out there. They're a lot more, I would even say, more masculine out there. The women, the men, everybody's more straightforward. And then I notice the West Coast, people are a lot more chill and have more of a free flow vibe. They're more feminine. You'll see a lot less straightforwardness and more beating around the bush, walking you around the block, and people just appearing softer. I mean, let's compare Seattle, Washington with New York City. I mean, like very different environments. So much stuff happens in Seattle that would almost never fly in New York. People are a lot more, hey, just bugging over here. Like, and then people are more confrontational with that. They're more willing to take things more seriously as opposed to you go to Seattle. You have a lot more people that are just tripping in public and nobody's doing anything but putting their head down and moving out the way. You could even compare Florida with California. Seems very similar because the beaches, but all I gotta say is we'll notice that this pattern. But then what else? What else is our draw notice? Okay, on the West Coast where people seem a lot softer, mind you got gangsters and stuff too, but I'm talking about the average person just spread out is a lot more seemingly feeler based, passive aggressive. East Coast, the average person is a lot more about that confrontation and less beating around the bush. But that doesn't mean you aren't going to find tough people on the West Coast. It doesn't mean you're not going to find passive aggressive, softer people on the East Coast. But I did notice the oceans, the Pacific Ocean pacifier, it's a lot more relaxed than the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean's waves are a lot more, you could say, rough. So that leads me to question, is there a connection between the waves of the ocean and the collective unconsciousness? There's also it's funny, in reverse speech, you'll find a dictionary mentions ocean, and it's been shown up to be in enough times in enough metaphors to be defined as collective unconsciousness. So, and the ocean is vast, deep. We haven't explored, like, we know more about space than we do our own ocean. There's so much hidden there, right? And I even find the ocean energy itself to be a collective consciousness. So, that's just an example of external dimensional, like extroverted intuitional thought. So I combine these two, and this helps me show up in my strongest light, which we want to remember because as we go into shadow work, it's all about staying in the light. So you want to use your two functions, and these are what we call complementary functions. The opposite of the parent is the child. So you get to the third function, that's what Personality Hacker calls the 10-year-old. Now, they teach this function is where we get defensive, and this is also where I find where we get inspiration. So we're able to do a pretty good job with this function, but they say it's like a 10-year-old level. So we can develop it pretty well. Most people, when you find your third function, mine is memory. So I don't give the affirmation that I have a bad memory anymore. I don't believe in these limitations. I believe that when we find the love, we can really work these functions to unknown degrees. I don't believe in cutting ourselves short. But this theory is a helpful model for understanding where we approach a function in relation to the number one function we do. So you can also think yin and yang. When we look in one direction so much, we automatically look away from others. So they become more of a shadow on our peripherals. And that's where this first to 8 functions shows itself. And as they've taught with the third function, this is where we get defensive. They're taught that this is where you have fun. You want to play with your 10-year-old child. So your inner child never goes away. You carry it with you. So I tap into it through memory. So INFPs were prone to a lot of nostalgia. I like the 90s. I like making good memories. I like reflecting back. This is where I get inspiration. But my memory, so a lot of times I could become very forgetful. I've been very forgetful in the past. So I've learned to use my memory in a very playful way. I'll make a lot of associations. I look at numbers and I rhyme things with them. I also look at how they're shaped, and I make visual associations with them, and it enables me to use memory in a more fun way to memorize more complex cues, more complex tasks, more complex details, but also very important details in the past tend to shine out to me. So, and then the fourth function, which they call the 3-year-old, is what Jung, what this guy, I forget his name, but anybody who's into this, you can Google him, you'll find out. But he proposed that the fourth function is the anima. And it makes a lot of sense, actually, because the fourth function is the last one in your car before you get to the unconscious one that personality hackers started talking about recently. So when you know your 4 functions, your type will show you your 4 functions. The way you know the rest of your 8 functions is to just flip the introverted and extroverted aspect of each one. So FI is FE, that's my 5th function. NE is NI, which is my 5th function. SI is SE, which is my 7th function. And then TE becomes TI, which is my final 8th function. And so, yeah, once you find your type, just remember that. And so you get to your 4th function, your animus. Personality hacker teaches us that this is where we relax. So this is the part of us where we get stressed out. So as you can imagine, for me, my hero is getting into my feelings and finding how I feel about everything. Why do I feel this way? The why. What do I value? Right? This could be developed through having a list of maybe 5 to 10 things that we love more than anything else, and then replacing the top one and fine tuning it to a point where we're very aware of what we value in our life. Getting involved in what I feel is directly the opposite of getting involved with what others think. So to be effective, to effectively make things happen in the world, to have a goal and accomplish it requires getting out of our feelings and getting straight up into the logic of how it shows up in the outer world. So an INFP might have a dream of leading a whole bunch of people and creating like a utopia. That's actually a big dream of mine. I would love to free all of the love, just a love all free. Just imagine a world where everything is clean and everybody is working together and living their best life for what they like to do, instead of pretending to be stuff that they're not, instead of worrying about anybody robbing you and fighting with people without growing. And just if everybody worked together, if everybody shared everything they knew together, nobody would have to have money, because everybody who loves what they do can have value with each other. Everybody's instantly rich. Everybody can be on a yacht. Everybody can, maybe not at the same time, but everybody can do it whenever, they're able to. There will be no limitations. We'd have the healthiest world possible, right? But all those things to happen require more than just feeling that I feel great when everything is clean and working well together, even though I didn't make up my bed fully. You know what I'm saying? That means I need to go make up my bed.
Right.
That's a simple, logical task that doesn't require, because I don't care if my bed is made. I really don't. Like, I'm gonna get back in it anyway. And, like, why would I care about that? But when I make it, that enables me to relax versus go out there and start a utopia. Okay, that's going to require a lot more logic, a lot more time outside of myself, a lot more working with all the elements. So that could bring me a lot of stress. Looking inside and what I feel is completely looking away from what's going on outside, right? But they complete each other. Because having a dream requires an action. And the same is flipped for any for any ESTJs or ENTJs out there who lead with my weaknesses and whose weaknesses are my strengths, we're just starting from different points. And, that's where you get the idea about you have people out there that are very effective and get to work, but what they actually care about is very unknown. And even if we find and define what they have, why they care about it and where they care about it and how they can tell that that's it, becomes something kind of blind. Because I might have something I care about, but I might not have fleshed out all the details of where it should go. So that's why I found it's important to relax like that baby. So it's like a little 3-year-old. I find that I need to look for people who would support me with that. So that's why I got involved with media, living as an example. If I make a living by inspiring others, then they might donate to my cause, or there's people I meet that they'll introduce me to people who can help me. And then that's how we met. And, you're helping me editing these things, right? Raise this effectiveness to a level to where not only I accomplish goals, but then I can be on top and make things work, right? Handicapped with Backseat Functions, but learning ways to hack your personality, which the codename personality hacker comes in. And, just not getting overly frustrated with being told, oh, I don't know if you can hack the system because it's your 4th function. You're an INFP. I don't know if you can play the game and, do all that. Versus, well, there are CEO INFPs, and it's about taking your time to develop the function. So, and backtracking on how personality hacker teaches that this 3rd function is how we use it to relax that child. That's how I can see how this is the inner feminine. My inner feminine, I had to think about gender roles. And so I gave a podcast a few years back about how making your weaknesses, like with my weaknesses being extroverted thinking, that wouldn't make sense for me as a man to show up as, hey, I tell everybody the details of what to do and I accomplish and everything. I'm the breadwinner in these logistics. It doesn't make sense for me to do that if that's not my strength. I think the backseat functions are how we deal with our femininity. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you focus on your 3rd and 4th functions, you're going to become more feminine. And that makes perfect sense. That's where you submit. You submit with you need to relax. That requires you being in an environment you can trust. You're not fully aware of everything going on. So you allow this part of you that gets stressed to relax more. And in that environment, and then you got the child that's playing and you're enjoying. And that sounds extremely feminine. Like, I think it's the reason why so many women are all about relaxing and having fun. And then the whole masculinity thing is we want to grow. I mean, look at the media. You ever watch any little boys animes? They're always about getting stronger. They're always about, like, the hero just gets strong for like no reason. Like, he went to a room and then he came out with his hidden power unlocked. And it's always about getting stronger and then finding and being the hero. But then you have a lot of girl shows where they focus less on being empowered and they're more about who they can trust. I was watching some animes that were meant for little girls, and I was noticing, okay, the colors are very relaxed, the music is very relaxed. It was about pianos or something, but I noticed, like, dang, like, this is very pleasing, but why am I like not as interested in this? Like, this goes with this goal. I love a relaxed environment, but not just a relaxed environment, but a peaceful one. But this comes back to the masculine and femininity. How are you going to have peace without people not necessarily going to war, but facing their demons and their shadows and being warriors in their own right? You need masculine and feminine. I mean, and so I say all of us should develop our masculine and our feminine, because we can't keep one without the other. You can't use your two leading functions without going to your 3rd and 4th functions to relax and have fun. That's what personality hacker calls decompression. When you are in your 1st and your 2nd function like too long, you get to a point where you start getting scared. You have to have fun in your 3rd function in order to not be defensive and go back out to growing. So what they mean by defensive is I could sit there and say, I don't want to try this new thing because I want the security, right? What I experience is memory. The highest order of that is having a life that stands the test of time. Exploration is about taking risks. What others want is about taking risks because it's not as controlled. It's very free. It's very experimental. And then, memory is all about, hey, I do this every day. I'm consistent. I got this built up. I got this pillar, got these bases, we holding everything up. It might seem very squarish, but that's what it's about. But I wouldn't grow if I stayed in that zone. So I have to have fun with that. And then once I have fun with that, I'm automatically I'm less anxious about what could go wrong. And then I go back out into the world. So sometimes I'll play a memory game. Like I'll literally get some cards or I'll look at some cards on my phone and I'll match them when they're all turned to the opposite side. And so I'll remember, okay, that one's there. And then, then I'll just play a game or whatever. Then all of a sudden I'm not scared about trying something new. Memory would be where I would be getting defensive. So when I have fun with the memory, it's like I'm doing little things that weren't that bad. And then now I'm ready to go out and try something new. We have parts of our consciousness that when we use it, we need to give it a break and then it comes back stronger again. So again, like masculine is when we grow and we stay hard, right? Isn't that funny? That's what a penis does, right?
Right.
Our penis, it grows, it grows and gets hard. That's what we're supposed to do. We're hard, so we control ourselves, which is our hero function. And then our parent function grows, so there it is. While what does a vagina do? It lubricates. That allows ease of access, and it relaxes. So for what? For a penis to go in or a baby to come out. When we go to our fourth function and we lightly involve ourselves, like me just making my bed, right? Recording a podcast. It's something I can do. It's simple. And then it makes me feel more relaxed with that. So I allow myself to go back to my strength, right? So a vagina works the same way. So we all have to relax. None of us can stay hard all the time. The idea is you go through these stages so when you get to the last four functions, this is your unconsciousness. This is your shadow, and this is where all your shadow work is done. The fourth function is a gateway to your unconsciousness. And what that requires is you working alongside it. So the hero, but I was getting into like the hero and the parent. And so I suspected that this is your masculinity. And then your third and your fourth functions is your femininity. So I can see how this would be the inner woman. Basically my anima would be ESTJ, using what others think and what I experience. Makes sense. Because the kid and the anima, it's like the inner woman taking care of the kid. Right? Relaxing and having fun. The only problem is I don't understand how that would work for women with that being the inner man, unless that's just who they submit to. Because again, that's where they relax and have fun. That's where they're being feminine. But maybe that's just where women submit to. While for the man, this is where we submit. But as men, since we're more programmed through our testosterone to grow, I mean, you can tell by our body, your body type will show you whether you have more estrogen or testosterone anyway. I mean, you can switch a lot of things, but testosterone builds more muscle mass, burns more fat. It's more resilient to stress. Estrogen displaces a lot of fat into like the breast, the buttocks, the hips. Like there's a good number of African women out there that got really nice hips and really nice butts to where it looks like you can see the butt from in front of them. Like the hips and the butt just meet and it's like this perfectly round unit. And I max out every muscle group. I didn't like how big my butt got. I was like, why the hell is my butt so big? Like, because my legs were like huge, and big legs look weird on a man. Like, because I saw myself in the mirror, I'm like, because I don't see the fat, right? Like women got the big legs, it just looks like a stallion or something. I'm seeing myself with these big legs, like a drumstick, and then like my butt's like right here, and I'm thinking, shit, if I ended up with this ass, any chick out there can get an ass. Like all she got to do is just lift heavy as shit, like just squat and deadlifts for sure. You do the wide stance deadlift, you're definitely gonna you're gonna work on your the hips, and the butt. You know, I had to use a lot of that in the horse stance videos. In fact, like the butt, man, the butt and the hips mostly felt on the hips though. But then when the hips go out, it's all about the butt from then on, and relaxing, right? And that's that yin yang energy again, where we tap into the inner feminine. And but I would say, just to fully digest this concept of these functions, it's the inner woman for the man because it is where we relax. But for us, it's how we're handling our femininity, and so it's going to be what we're attracted to with the woman. Um, the woman, it's going to be their femininity as well, but it's going to be it's going to be the masculine that they're attracted to within their feminine. So instead of jumping back and forth, just to keep it simple, I'm just going to say, like, your fourth function is how you connect to your unconsciousness. It's also, as you develop it, it's how you relate to dating. So when I was previously talking about the four stages, so you have deception, supplication, combat, and then competition. The final stage of relationship development, or your shadow, is going to have to be, if your shadow is going to have to end from competition. I mean, it makes sense because sex is a very competitive activity, is it not? It takes one seed to fertilize the woman's egg, and then you made it through all your brethren, and not even just your direct brethren from your father, but then your the other men who tried to get to your mother, and then the other women who tried to get to your father. It's just a competitive aspect, but it doesn't end with competition because you join together to become one and cooperate as one and become one. And here we are as a literal physical manifestation of the unification of our parents. Now, it leads us to think, does that mean developing our fourth function to the highest degree, or developing how we utilize our fourth function through the shadows? I would say it's the latter. So it's not, so what I found is I have to relax, right? As we're going through these stages of deception to supplication, combat, competition, these are also stages of how we use our fertile energy, which is how we get into semen retention. It's not just the men who get strengthened from retaining our seed. Women get weakened from having sex as well. You both get weakened. So I don't know if it's true, but I'm gonna share. My dad has his opinion that busty women are hypersexual and want men that they can seduce with their breasts. The idea is not just busty women, but curvy women, women that are attractive. I definitely don't agree that has to be true, but I can see where that logic of thought could come from. If you have more to sexually offer and you keep getting that attention, you're tempted to use it. But if you do, then that's saying that all attractive people in general would be more likely to get weakened. And I mean, you do see a lot of weak attractive people though. Like, someone looks good, but they lack morality, they lack structure in their life. They end up addicted to drugs, and then their looks fall off later. They end up, they were the shit in high school, and then whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. For anybody, I would definitely say, but you definitely deal with a double-edged sword. Because as I was mentioning, when you show off anything, you're more likely for someone to want to use it because they see that you got it. You flash money. You don't have to just flash money. You just look good. Like, it all comes with a cost. Like, you got long, beautiful hair, you got beautiful curves, beautiful skin, beautiful face, whatever you got, if you show it. Now, this is different versus being desirable, right? Like, if you are working towards cooperating to make something happen and you show that off, then people can work with you. They can also use that to try to trick you, but you can also see if whether or not they are not only willing but able to. So my family, unfortunately, didn't really teach value about attraction with dating. Like I said, my parents never talked to me about sex. The only thing I've ever heard from anybody in my family, I'm talking aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, grandparents, has been what they look like. Oh, she's pretty. Why don't you go after her? Oh, why don't you talk to her? You'll meet somebody nice. Like, there was never any like realistic understanding about the values of a relationship, what they bring, what you live for. Now, in my development, I highly suggest you understand yourself, live a life for like where you're healthier, deal with your shadows, and then learn what it is that you're working with and for, and then learn your values in role models of both sexes. Develop role models if you can, maybe as many as you want or whatever, that fill your life with a direction. Then your associates, you can learn respect. If you don't have role models, I don't see how you can have respect. Like, in all honesty, how do you know anybody's good for you if you only value yourself? How are
Right.
you going to see a woman and say, like, if you don't have any women that you admire, appreciate, love, you don't have a grandmother or qualities of your mother that you appreciate, if all you're focusing on looks, you're just setting yourself up to get used,
Mhm.
especially to you. Not only you get used, but using other people, because it's a two-way street of supplication. So that second stage, right? So when it comes to semen retention, you evolve as an individual. I mean, it's hard to call it semen retention for a woman because you don't make semen, but you get the picture. You're going to go through the same results. So relapsing and all that. And if anybody's skeptical, I challenge you to take notes of your mentality and appreciation for life and how you run the course of anything you do, any metrics you have in your life. Really reflect on yourself, and then after you, let's say, have sex with somebody you're impressed by, see how your mood goes. I mean, at that level, when you have sex with somebody that you didn't think you could have sex with and you really like them and all that, that's probably the least damaging of it all. But I guarantee you are making a sacrifice to your energy. You might feel really ecstatic and good, but just see where your life goes after that. And if you've already done it, reflect back on it, but do it again to make sure you're fully sober minded about it. And this is what I'm telling you, is men and women both get weakened by sex. It's a meaningful sacrifice. It's not a private recreational activity. It is something that costs you. It costs you your neurotransmitters. All these things get released. What if I told you that that instant of pleasure, I mean, you get that pleasurable act, right? That slow release, and then all of a sudden that build up. What if I told you that animal act of pleasure takes all the joy you could be experiencing every day of your life in a more gradual dosage throughout life for the sake of that experience? I would much rather the world be my bedroom than my bedroom be my world. You're more likely to be enslaved by another group of people, and you're more likely to live under someone else's program. Your consciousness is dumbed because you're thinking with the little head. You think with the little head, you get little head. Literally, your whole world becomes dumbed down into that act, and it's perpetuated by the collective shadow, society shadow. You have your personal shadow, and then you have the collective, and then you have the collective shadow. There's a collective light, we get these metaphors. People call it the enemy, spirit of evil, deception. It's individuals that want power, and they're willing to take it from others by any means necessary. And these individuals get traded off. The people that fight for it, you put it in the media, everything that pollutes the environment, just like what pollutes the mind, right? Plastic is all over the oceans. Where we once could have fish, we get fish and get all that omega-3 and be like, fish are healthy. We can't do it anymore because they're filled with so much plastic. It's unhealthy for us. It's so much pollution. It's in the environment. Can't even hunt correctly, right? Why do we even allow this stuff to happen? Because we don't care. More willing to not give a fuck about what you do when others are when you lose that energy. So I like to use the fuck them kids example, because a lot of men, we don't really care about children like that. And it's usually because we've lusted so much. People want to go, I think that we were a lot happier in the 90s, not just as a result of not knowing as much. I mean, we definitely have a lot of technology we barely know how to use, but I think it's because of distribution of pornography. Back then in the 90s, if you wanted to see some shit, you either had to be in the industry or you had to like literally look at a magazine or some scrambled shit on TV. But nowadays, you got your phone and your internet. Everybody can see whatever they want, and you can just Google it. You can just get curious. You can see a girl outside and just look it up. You got romance novels all over the place. Everybody is getting weakened, and the advertisements are in more places. So all these advertisements we look at, sex sells. There's too much sex in the media. All of it is to dumb you down. And the reason why I say the fuck them kids example is there are so many people who are all about their sexuality today because they've been molested and or raped at a young age, and they made it their identity to deal with it, to try to integrate their shadow and push it and push it and push it to where they don't repress it. And ultimately, all this has been because of corruption. Usually somebody's uncle, some inappropriate family member, somebody close. You have men who are more likely to check you on your weird behavior, like, hey, they'll pull you to the side and be like, why are you talking to my daughter like that? Like, why are you so close? What's going on? What y'all doing? Like, you see a bunch of weird shit, you're going to handle it. But if you just busted a nut, you're more willing to just like be less confrontational. You're more like relaxed, like, and you're a little bit scared of conflict. You're like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, even if you nut up and feel like you're going to do something about it, you're going to have less intention to kill, or you're going to be more reactive and just pull the trigger, be like, well, I don't need all that if I got a gun, but you're weaker in your mind. You're so much stronger when you preserve your energy. And I don't just mean like withholding from masturbation. It's a very strict practice. When you don't masturbate, you also shouldn't watch any porn or lust after anyone. Because when it's in your mind, where the head goes, the body follows. So this is just a strict, you could say like the sprained ankle example. Your mind is swollen from overuse of perversion. What would happen if we just took that out of our mind and just lived a life of latency, if that's the appropriate Freudian term, where we just live our world in a very chaste way and don't focus on sexuality, don't focus on lust, don't look at anybody in a purple way. As soon as you look, you feel pleasure. When you're feeling pleasure, it's from your hormones secreting. So you're already losing energy down to the little head. It's gathering up. You can come just by hanging out with a woman you find attractive and just listening to her voice and feeling it vibrate next to you. And anytime a woman is standing next to you and y'all getting excited about this guy you're attracted to, and y'all just sitting there talking to him, you get turned on, just the interaction itself, you're losing your energy. You're getting stimulated. You're getting weaker in your mind. And then if you go home and you reflect back on that encounter and start touching yourself in the shower, you're weakening yourself. And men, if you see that this woman's getting excited about you and you're feeling good about yourself, like, yeah, I'm just like, you're weakening her. and you are weakening yourself because you were desiring to be desired like that. So you're mutually weakening. And for what? What are you doing with that energy? It's leaving you. So that energy could be used towards actually caring about children who are our future. When we're old and we don't have what it takes to even start losing our memory, our faculties, there are people today that believe that the only reason why some people are alive is because their grandparents are still praying for them. Grandparents are able to be alive because they got kids and grandkids that care about their safety. They care about their life, man. Like, you got kids that are gonna grow up. These kids grow up without morals and they start shooting each other at 14 and, making videos in front of their graves and fuck the ops and everybody's ops. There's no enemy outside of you when there's no enemy inside of you. We're dealing with the shadow, our own shadow, than a collective shadow. But people, we have more love to give and share when we have this energy. For one, it gives us not only a killer instinct, but we're more controlled to care about the love and not only fight for what we love, but to correct it. But so many people are afraid of the consequences. That's why they hide it. And that's where you get to that first stage of deception. So with semen retention or sexual integrity, it requires you to not be too bored, because that's where the relapse comes in, when you're bored. But you also don't want to be too stressed. So this is where the fourth function is how we relax. We want to engage our fourth function when we feel stressed, so that we can come down from being too stressed. We want to relax it though, just enough. You don't want to live in it because that's where stress is, but you use it in a way to relax. But then you also need to have enough energy to not be bored, and you want to be in the middle. That's the best way to maintain not relapsing in semen retention. Engage your fourth function and also engage your hero. You go back into your hero, you get your energy. This is where your purpose comes in, and you use that energy. And the beautiful thing about temptation is every time we overcome it, every time we overcome the idea of, oh, I could look this up right now, or I could be doing this, or ooh, look at her. We could definitely, when we turn away from it and not do it, when we overcome temptation, we gain a level up in our Kundalini. It's hard to explain the exact process, but you'll feel strength. You'll feel the bass in your voice return. You'll feel the consistency, some more solidity. You start gaining levels. It's not just about time and effort. That is a process, but those crucial moments, if it motivates us to overcome the temptation, just know that you do get something out of overcoming. Our sexuality is programmed. There's a natural sexuality, but you realize that it's your life force, and it's not you indulging in something as a defense mechanism. So that's why I wanted to get into these levels and compare the Freudian defense mechanisms. Now, I'm still allocating some of these to different sections, but I think that this also helps the process. So just remembering that the anima, or the fourth function, is going to be where we're going to relax. So anytime we deal with something we feel defensive, it's good to play and relax, which I'd say the third and the fourth function come together to complete your connection, because these are complementary functions. These complementary functions, just like your hero and your parent, your child and your anima or animus, are also complementary. And using them on the level to where you can relax and play are great for having a balance of being relaxed and not bored. And so finding inspiration and perhaps a mission within the relaxation when we deal with these shadow functions can help us in our processes. So when you're dealing with the first stage of sexual intrigue, we just see what someone has. A woman just has to see a guy with muscles or status and go fill out and go and say she'll fuck him. A guy just has to see a woman with ass and titties and go, I'll fuck her. Or she, whatever. It's this notion where we ignore. This doesn't seem like a problem because you see a model and you're like, oh yeah, like want to put so much in there. I had a reversal once. It's like the soul fucking the nice model. Like, when I was questioning, why would I just want to be able to go up to anybody and not get nervous. Why would I get so nervous around an attractive woman? That nervousness goes away. People say it doesn't go away. I remember, I think Joshua Pelletier said it doesn't go away. It just, you just learn to see it differently. I've learned it really does go away. When we're not perverted, it goes away. You don't, that nervousness, we don't feel like this person is up here. We don't feel all that. We feel appreciative, but then we're also aware of the rest of it. So when the energy goes down, we start thinking with the little head. That's the eighth function, which I'm gonna just go back calling it deception. This is where we're dealing with again, deception. Like, deception is thinking with the little head. This is where society can dumb you down with sexuality and then make you want to buy a cheeseburger or a car or whatever they want to put this nice model next to. You know, you start thinking with the little head, and for some reason you crave Mickey D's later. Like, they spend millions. What, am I tripping, or is it billions? Like,
Billion.
that's a lot of money to be putting thoughts in people's heads. So you put these thoughts in people's heads, getting them to think with the little head, you know, to dumb down, right? So the same thing for dating. It's the same thing with commerce. This is just shadow manipulation tactics, getting you in your unconscious mind. So raising our states of consciousness is also being aware of our unconscious mind, gaining conscious access. This is the strength of doing the shadow work. You want to be able to lead with your hero, combination with the parent, grow, and then this is where you shine the light and do the honorable thing, right? So my technique would be use the fourth and the third function to relax and have some fun when we're dealing with the strain from the eighth to fifth functions. Isolate the trigger and relax as like a first step, and then go into the hero and the parent to think with your larger head again,
Right.
and then make the appropriate choice. Now, with my eighth function, where I could be deceived is within what I think. So it seeks integration. Since I'm starting off with what others think, I like to filter in logic with mass opinions. I'll ask a bunch of people, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? That's why I bring up Personality Hacker, Dow Badass, and Joshua Pelletier, you know, whoever else comes up, like, that I can think of. I learn a lot of logic from many sources, and then I test it in the outer world. And then the more of it I see, I think of it myself. And then eventually I like to anchor this with the complementary function of my parent, of what others want intuitively, to see a pattern with the logic, to go, okay, this is what I think from all this stuff, from what everybody thinks, from what I've been seeing. This is where I'm getting my logic, which I'm giving you in this moment. And then I can also combine it with the seventh function, which is what others experience, where I would supplicate. So if you can bear with me on these concepts, we'll probably definitely need like a chart of a couple squares, Punnett squares, to show what I'm talking about. Deception deals with just looking at the physical. This woman has an impressive body. I like what I like. As I mentioned, I don't see the point in focusing on a body, because I don't have to think about what I like. I know what I like. And the other question is this what I really like? Or has this been programmed into me? I already got memories of why I would like it, what I can do with it. You know, curvy women, certain skin tone, smoothness. You know, I could focus on all that stuff, but I already know what I like, right? So I would rather, that's not how I live. I don't go out in the world and see ass and titties behind the forest and the trees and the, you know, when I'm working and selling and getting sunlight and working out. That's not life. That's not reality. That's a deception. That's a fixation. That creates a perversion, right? As we mentioned, I don't recommend porn, because that puts you into your little head where you can get programmed. If you're turned on, all your mental energy is getting brought down to the little head to bring the blood, to get the soldiers ready, or get the eggs warmed up and ready, lubricated for the insertion to adapt. People become like putty, and they can be molded into whatever others want them to be.
Yeah.
You know, the issue of being raped, right? People liked it. That's the sad thing about it. They were violated, attacked, forced entry, but then they were stimulated, and that leads an internal conflict of why do they like it? Why do they get turned on? Why do they? And so they end up thinking about it later, but they hate that person. So they got love and hate, anger, like questioning themselves, and some end up just going for it. If anybody were to tell me that homosexuality cannot be programmed, then explain people that get turned out in prison. You want to tell me that they get turned out because they're gay the whole time? Or is it the fact that you masturbate as a man or a woman, you're touching yourself? These ain't soft hands. If I'm touching myself, this is a man's hand. But I'm thinking of a woman though. But this is a man's hand. Who's to say you can't be thinking of a woman fucking another dude? Who's to say a dude can't dress up as a woman and get some titties? Oh, that ass jiggling though. Like, who's telling me you can't program that and make something out of it? If you can't, if a woman's lesbian but she's fucking with a rubber penis, who's to say she wouldn't like a real penis? People make choices with where they get stimulated, and then it brings it down to the little head. So this is when I think maybe we're sexually stressed. And instead of releasing that stress and dealing with now a sex addiction where we're developing more and more and more, like I said, like you were saying, you were getting into things you weren't into, like group sex. And if you can masturbate to something, who's to say you wouldn't get into it in real life? You found out how to enjoy it. Without going to a slippery slope fallacy, let's just take the phallus out of fallacy and just, cool off with some air conditioning. That was corny as shit, but for real, like, let's AC and think for a second, like, so maybe if we cool off and back up from the sex and let our brain rewire, like, let's say shoot for 100 days, no lusting. Don't be so strict about it, but and go beyond and see what we're into. I've noticed I had a breast fetish that got more and more extreme the more anime I watched, the more thoughts I had about it. And I had to ask myself when I was like 15, all right, there's a point where titties got to stop. What's my size where I'm going to stop at? Like, because there's a point where, more seems better. But you're saying I'm going to have a woman that requires a damn, like a will. You know what I'm saying? You got women out there that develop like extra foul, like there are size queens where they need it really big, right? Like how big we talking? Like you can push a whole baby out of there. So, apparently nobody's going to be walking around with too big of a penis. Like, and you got people that they got to have it. They got to have this. They got to have that. Like, let's just keep it real. Are you just trying, or is it really something you care, or do you just have a void you're trying to fill? It goes both ways. Like, are we all just having a void we're trying to fill? And that's why we hyper focus on this animal act to take ourselves out of a miserable existence, or do we want to work and slave all day?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So, there's these ideas like, so there's clearly going to be a reason for a woman to like a larger penis. It's more masculine, isn't it? You develop a larger penis when you have more testosterone. That's just what science, right? Women, you develop curvier bodies when you develop more estrogen. Clearly, why wouldn't we be attracted to that, right? I'm not here to shame what any of us like. When it gets to a point where it perverts us from a greater purpose in life, we're all just being robbed. Hey, let's just go 100 days. It sounds hard, but every time I've looked at pornography, I get robbed of my personality. Like literally, it's more sensitive to some of us than others. Like, I think I find that your weaknesses are directly proportionate to your hidden strengths. If I look at porn, it's like I lose my core personality for 3 weeks. It sounds extreme, but I have a certain joy that is magical. I'm out there, I'm just in my element, I'm feeling, and I'm very strong. And yet I don't take no shit either. But I also don't have to like be distraught and stuck on it. Like I am like a super person the more that I don't lust. It must be a personal weakness. Now, I find that everybody gets weakened from it, but Everybody likely doesn't get weakened like I do. When you isolate your weakness, tap into it. So that first stage of what I think, right? The way I've seen it come up for me is if I think about a woman's body, I'm focusing on that woman's body. I'm utilizing, introverted thinking, what I think, right? If I'm thinking about this woman's body, my logic is literally me thinking with my little head. I go back to my feeling, which is okay. I feel heat in my heart. I feel the energy going down. I need to calm down. And so I sober my thought to think back on, okay, well, I'm not doing anything right now. So I refuse to be turned on. So that became a core value. Like, I refuse to be turned on by anything that I'm not doing. And then that puts me into the second stage where I take action. So the first stage, I think the two Freudian defense mechanisms are repression or denial and repression and denial. I find denial to be healthier. Even though I said in the last video about denial being a supplicative thing, I think it can be too. They can show up. But just bear with me, I'm looking for some patterns here. I can switch them up, but I would say repression is definitely deceptive because we're not even able to be aware of the problem. It's so repressed in the shadow that we can't even think about it. This cognitive dissonance. You'll know you have it because when you think about a particular topic, your mind just won't connect anything. It's like you don't see anything. You're literally in the shadows. Like your mind's eye has the blinders on. Like your regular eyes are closed. It's like your mind's eye won't even form the image or a shape. You have a repressed part of your consciousness there. There could be hidden traumas. Denial is you're consciously aware that there's something going on, but you just don't want to think about it or accept it. You're just like, nah, I'm going to choose not to. Right? So I've already accepted that I shouldn't be so bored and lazy because I find that sloth shows up with that too. That fifth chakra right there, where you're dealing with this mind-body connection of what I think. This logic is cut off. Definitely want to be diligent. So I'll remember to relax into a task. Sometimes I'll save a task for later too, like because I'm not stressed. I'll let something go and then I'll handle it. So I don't overwork myself and get stressed. Because if I'm stressed, then that means I'm going to have to do another task, and then that could be a trigger. But like I said, that first stage, a person can just be masturbating. And mind you, every time you masturbate, you're in that first stage. You lower your vibration back to deception. And this is also where people rape. So, rape, murder, all that stuff. You have a lot less rapists in the world. And the crazy thing is, rapists, you'll often find that they were raped. So it's a cycle. But to break the cycle, person needs to access those repressions. And it's not just like South Park has some jokes about priests molesting their kids and stuff because they can't get married or have sex. So they'll just use the kids, but in all honesty though, they think they're afraid of semen retention because they're like, that's how you're going to go crazy. No, that's how you don't go crazy. That's how you don't lust. Right. If you don't masturbate and you stare at people with lust in your mind, then your energy is going to be really big, but it's going to be mentally geared like a bow and arrow. Like you got a loaded pistol towards a little boy or whatever the hell you've been thinking about and getting twisted up. It's about clearing the mind. I would say meditate, clear the mind on what you really want, stay away from the stimulus. Meditation is what you want. The opposite of that is what others are experiencing. This is when you get involved in the act, which what I get to in the second stage for me is what others are experiencing. So this is how I found that I could become supplicative to a woman's beauty. She looks good, which is funny because, it's what my family has talked about. Oh, look at her. So I recognize I have to be the hero in my family to break the cycle of people just focusing on what others look like. My dad may have chosen my mother because of what she looked like and may have been blindsided because she's an intelligent woman, but she was also a not very moral woman, not very reliable. And my father had a lot of issues where, people aren't perfect, right? but I've been able to analyze what was wrong on both sides. And it helps us all to be able to see that, because if you think that your parents are perfect, then it could be denial, right? Where you see a problem and you just don't want to think about it, or it could be repression. But, when we talk about raising our consciousness, know that the first stage of when you're dealing with the eighth function, just because we use the eighth function doesn't mean we're in deception, because I can have integrity in what I think. That's the whole goal of it. That's the healthy way to access it. That's the solution to it. Mind you, being in that first stage, it lowers you. So if you're lusting, you automatically are like the lowest vibration you can be in. You're already lying to yourself. You're already thinking with the lower head, right? Other people can think for you and send thoughts to your lower head, and you think, oh, that makes sense at the time. It made sense at the time. It just made sense. That's why you see crazy ideas like why the hell would anybody want to smoke crack? Why the hell would anybody want to do fentanyl? Why would anybody? But then that goes into society, Shadow. We have all these drug epidemics. Why do we have all these psychiatrists prescribing drugs for people with their issues? We as a society in our light, okay, chemical medication for people because, oh, your child is hyperactive. Oh, let's put them on Ritalin. Like, let's answer everything with a drug. Oh, you got a headache? Let's take some Tylenol. So we got people who need to get back into ancestral ways of living, grounding, healthy practices, alternative medicine. That's why I don't eat vegetables. They're medicinal. I'm not sick. If I'm sick, I'm going to mentally think of a vegetable if a certain organ meat isn't cutting it. Makes sense for me, and it's been working. But and that goes into other things you get into, like with addictions, like your diet, your meaningful diet. People swear up and down being vegan puts you at a higher state of consciousness because you're not killing. To be honest with you, I can talk about that some other time, really. But I do see the moral issue in the cycle of life. Mind you, when you eat plants, you are killing plants. But what I realized in the second stage of supplication is identifying what it is we're willing to supply, right? The word supplication throws you off to think about supplying. What are you willing to do for something? So I work out. I maximize my body for health, walk 10 miles a day, do all the heaviest lifting on every muscle group. I do it as a discipline and curiosity. I'm curious about the testosterone I build. I'm curious about the health benefits of it. I'm curious about, as I get older, will I maintain the strength and energy production? Though I'm also aware that in that stage, if I can be targeted for people who want to use me. So it's not just me looking at attractive women and thinking, oh, let me go up to her and think, oh, let me take her out or let me get nervous. Just simply getting nervous is supplying energy. Thinking about someone is supplying energy, but also me showing myself to be strong can be supplicative. Sounds crazy, but anytime you're showing off, like if you're a fine ass woman and you walking around showing how fine you are, you can also be supplicating if you crave that attention. If you don't crave the attention, then you're not lowering your energy. But if you do, then you end up basing yourself on that attention, and then that weakens you later. And that's why you have a hard time finding a good relationship in general, because you're setting yourself up to be used. It doesn't matter what you do. Anything you show off sets yourself up to be used. So the appropriate way to deal with supplication is to accept what is acceptable and deny what isn't. Some people say, keep the meat, discard the fat. I'm not going to say that because fat is healthy. That good grass-fed animal fat. I'm not talking about them seed oils. But, let's say you're dealing with, so me, I'll just do myself again, because that's what I know. Some people get triggered when I say this, but being wanted is not itself a good thing. You're set up to be used. I don't live for people to marvel at me. I don't work out for people to go, damn, look at him. I don't, I see compliments as a responsibility, honestly. It's like I mentioned, if someone compliments you and you accept it, you're performing for them. I don't want to live on, we are living in a stage, but I don't live for the performance. I live for the purpose of the play. That sets me up to not crave the attention and then be worried about my fans and go, damn, I'm losing fans. I'm losing attention. Let me show off. Like, then I become a slave to that attention. And that blinds me, right? It's a lower vibration. So in supplying anything we do, we might feel better because, hey, we look good or whatever, but then you get haters, right? And then that leads you to the third stage. But in the second stage, we're dealing with, I think this is where we're dealing with regression, which is where we go back to an earlier stage in our development where things are okay, like sucking our thumb because we remember being a baby and our parents took care of everything, or watching an old cartoon. I think there could be some healthy ways with it. I mean, I like to have fun while I'm past. I might watch some Rugrats or something and go, damn, I ain't seen that in forever. And, for like maybe 10 minutes, I watch like an episode or whatever. Or they used to do them in 2 parts, right? So like I'll watch like an episode and then go out, or I'll sit there for 20 minutes, whatever. Something simple as that. If I don't feel like doing a card game or whatever, I'll switch it up. Something a little nostalgia bringing, right? But where it gets crazy is when we're just sitting there like acting like we're kids again. That means we're really going through something stressful. Some people, I've had a client tell me that she was involved in like a shooting or something that that made her have regress back to a child, and then she had to grow up all over again. Some interesting cases in regression, right? It kind of sounds like deception to me when we regress, but it could also be a form of supplication because we want things to be back to the way they are. We just kind of like regress. But that one I'm still debating. But another one that I definitely see as supplication is reaction formation. This is a defense mechanism where a person shows what the opposite of what they feel because they don't think that their actual feeling is acceptable. They could be scared. It could be like Devo pops up, wants to snatch your chain, and you're just like, no, what's up, big dog? No, you good, you got it, lose yours. Lose yours the whole time. Like, but really inside, they're like, I hate this motherfucker, but they don't want to show it because they don't want to get knocked out. And I was looking at that originally as deception, but I think it's supplication because that's the whole concept of, oh, I want this person, but really you don't really want them. You want what they have, and you're willing to pay for it, and you want to show off like, and this is like the whole nice guy idea or the choose me girl idea is like they're just showing up being very pleasing to try to get you, but really they're getting tired of your shit. They're like, look, motherfucker, I'm just trying to get some ass. Or like they just come up and they come and like they don't show that, so they keep trying to buy that, right? And what I found to help me through the second stage is, well, it's funny. What gets me to the second stage is instead of masturbating, what I would do is I'll go out in the real world and then I'll look for the real thing. So if I see a chick that's got an amazing body, what I would do to take me out of the porn is, well, I'm going to go make it happen. Fuck that. Fuck sitting there being weak and masturbating and then getting nervous around people. I'm going to go out there, enjoy life, and I'm going to make it happen. The only thing is that's a low vibration, but it's higher than the deceptive one because it's still me doing something about it, which I mentioned. This stage, the woman at this stage is likely to do it with you because she likes that you take an action.
Right.
You got balls. Right. That's why a lot of women like thugs. You got balls. You're showing them what they don't got. They don't got the balls to do what you're doing. They don't got that masculinity, right? There's a reason why guys get in fights and then women get turned on. But these are women at the second level. Third level women, they can see you, but they aren't going to get turned on by you. So if you're a woman and you find yourself getting turned on by dudes like that, you're at a low vibration. And for any guys out there that are sitting there trying to get it like that, you can go much higher. You all can. We all are at a lower vibration. We're on that stage. So for a while, that was my stage. I was like, it's supplication, but the higher level of it is, look, I'm not going to sit there and cheat myself. But the problem is going for a woman who, hey, she not only has this body, but she's feeling me. We're both supplicating. Some people think that that's cooperation because you both are supplicating. I disagree, only because true cooperation, both people get higher. If both people agree that, hey, I'm going to do this and we're going to do that, it's like somebody selling you some bullshit. Like if somebody wanted to sell you some crack and you had the money for the crack, oh, it's an even exchange, right? That crack's going to fuck you up. And then you paying this person to, hey, they can feed their family, but they're also getting all these problems in community, right? I mean, ethics and stuff. Maybe the crack dealer is doing better than the crack fiend, most likely, right? But the point is, two people who agree on something is not truly cooperative. There's some deception present. It's just supplication. Two people who want to use each other and don't really enjoy the rest of who they are cheating each other out of an actual better union where they can have a better life. Because later on, hey, that girl might realize, damn, why didn't that guy really want me though? Am I ugly? It's like they can both say they agree to be with each other, but they don't necessarily, feel completely okay with that because they are both sacrificing their energy for nothing but some temporary pleasure. That's the problem with that. I had that question growing up. I found the answer. That's the problem with it. So supplication can work on two ends. That's why we want to get to the third level of respect. This is where people focus on where things are headed. So the woman might look at what's your job or whatever, what are you about in your life, what's your title, whatever. I'm not saying you got to make money. I'm saying you got to have a life about a specific cause. You got to be about something. The man sees the woman as having a heart at this stage. So again, when we're dealing with that stress, we got to sober ourselves up with that fourth function and relax. Maybe even combine it with that third function, relax, but then go back to our hero and observe this reaction from a higher place. So as we develop this, and mind you, I've also used my fourth function to develop logistics on dealing with these functions. So it could look a little bit different to other individuals' function stacks. You can play around with it, but that's why I'm sticking to the main use of the function is you need to relax and come down, but then go up with your hero function, and then you're thinking higher, and then you're able to navigate these levels better, build yourself up through these levels. So when you get to the third level of where they're headed, I think that in this stage, the defense mechanisms would be projection and displacement. Projection is when we see somebody else is doing something that we're doing. This is when somebody comes up and they're like, so you using me for my money, right? Yeah, you're using me for my money, but really you're using them for sex because you're a trick, but, you're showing respect for yourself, right? By standing up, but you also fighting a battle that you started or you chose to participate in. You put your money where your mouth was, but you're projecting that the other person is putting words in your mouth when you're putting words in their mouth. So pretty much that's projection, right? The projection is when the person is fighting for something that they respect, right? But they're kind of like on that level. And this is why I mentioned like the guys who say like, oh, well, she has a heart, whatever, I'm gonna fight for her. But, they might project on other guys like, oh, you're trying to use it for this because you got that. But then you got to ask yourself, are you with this woman and are you using her for that? Are you still on this level where at least like you see that she has a heart, right? And the woman might be like, oh, so this bitch trying to take my man, because he's got 6 figures or whatever, and she's ready to fight. Who knows? Who knows? Like, is she trying to take someone else? I mean, not all the time, but you can understand a little bit more. Just know if you're involved in that level. And then displacement is when you go through something. It's kind of like the reaction formation, except for showing the opposite emotion. you're taking the anger out on somebody that you can. So let's say like your boss treats you like shit, you come home and beat your son's ass. You know, it's like you want to be in the position that boss was in on you and take it out on a kid who can't do nothing to you. Or picking a fight with somebody you think is weaker than you, or just taking shit out on your partner, talking crap, whatever, because something didn't go the way you wanted it to. You know, it's just a very combative way to be. But I see this level of the third level not only combative because this level is where we're the critic. It's where we see the wisdom, but we can also hyper focus on the problem, right? And the idea is we should use it for knowing the solution. So the best way to deal with combat is to gain respect. So my function on this level is what I want. So it's a little bit unclear, but I'm able to tap into it. I could get critical about it. So it helps me to stay respectful with it. If I'm using respect with that, as long as I respect myself on that, like I have to respect what I want. So, like I said, I see this woman's body, but she ain't about it. I don't have to focus on it no more. So, looking at pornography is just looking at a bunch of women that just aren't involved. They aren't even present. And then going out and going after a woman because she's present is also me not respecting what I want, because it doesn't mean I can do whatever I want with her later. It means we ain't going to get a call back, or I'm not going to want to call her back, and we're both going to get lower, right? On the grand scheme of things, I want all the love to be free. So when I do that, I'm cheating myself out of something greater. So with respect to what I want, I remember that and I go, well, this, and then what? And then what is the question? So I'm able to think that at this level because I've rejected the lower level issues. So back to acceptance, I accept what's acceptable, I reject what's not acceptable. When I get to a level of now respect, I'm respecting the value, right? And I'm also making sure not, but I could also get very vicious where I can talk crap about something and pull it down because I'm defeating it in my own shadow. So when people are disassociating you, like I'm not disassociating, using displacement with us, it's because they're fighting something in their own mind. And they can also be projecting upon you something that they're internally battling. So it's not so much that what they say could be true. You know, like there can be a problem with thoughts. There can be a problem with people who make a living with lust and bringing other people down, because I've had to deal with that. And so I could feel more for that. But me battling other people is not the highest state I could be in, because that might get people to think about it, but it's also a lower vibration. But it's better than being supplicative and being deceptive, because we're speaking some facts. This is a social problem. This is an area, but you can get more flies with honey than vinegar, right? So to not operate as an asshole, in order to not turn into, an asshole, which is what can happen to us when we get involved with how you say, when we get involved with fighting off this inner battle. When I realize that I can care about what someone else is feeling, then it helps me a little bit in the stage where I can be more sober-minded on who is this person really. Like, not just what were they experiencing, because like I was mentioning in the second level of when I'm focusing on what others experience, I'm looking at, well, I accept it, right? Like they ain't really that into me, or they are into me, but I accept it and move on. So I accept what's acceptable. I accept that this is currently what's happening. And then I go to the next level where I'm respecting what I want. But then now I'm dealing with competition. The best way to deal with competition is to improve it instead of trying to defeat it. Because competition, if I improve, not somebody else is beating me, but I improve them as an individual. They're trying to improve themselves like I'm trying to improve myself. Of course, I got to improve myself, right? But when I'm dealing with the competition of what others are feeling, some of the defense mechanisms show up can be sublimation and rationalization. So rationalization is when something happens and we give a rational reason why and just completely ignore. It's like we're just giving a logical reason why things happen. We're just straight up like, oh, I lost my energy because it was cold outside and I was just shivering. It was a bunch of stress, and women walk around with hard nipples, and what am I supposed to do? Everybody got these jackets on. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Like, it's competitive because we're fighting something, but we're confident that we can do better. But we're not taking ownership of exactly what went on. At least I'm seeing it as a competitive way. But that's how that defense mechanism will run in is, oh, this happened, so we can do it better. It may be true sometimes. Sometimes, like, there's can be a rational reason why things happen. But oftentimes, as a defense mechanism, it's mainly meant to say, hey, look, this ain't me. This is that. So next time I'm going to do that. It could be true. And sometimes it's not true. And, that can help us, that can make us dive back down to the combative level or whatever. And then sublimation is where we take all the darker emotions we feel about something and we use it for a more acceptable goal. And that's ultimately, that's actually a healthier one. So I'll work out in the gym harder, like if I feel like I was turned on by something, but I'll remind myself though, I'm not doing it for that because that would be a lower reason. But it's me taking like anything I feel like, man, fuck that person or whatever. I'm just going to walk harder. I'm going to walk harder. Sometimes, I mean, it could get me in a fight, but then I'm more willing to go through the fight because of my resolve. But that's healthier than me cowering behind things. And it's the healthiest defense mechanism out of what I mentioned, sublimation, using it as fuel. Lust is we're just straight up trying to get this emotion from others. Like we're trying to get this feeling. We're searching for this type of chemistry. And yeah, ultimately on that level where we're looking, we're all looking at who a person really is. Me looking at where a person feels, I can see their actual values, who they really are in a way. Like how are they not just like what are they experiencing, but what's their actual values in a way? What are their values? And this goes into social values and societal values and where everybody's coming from as far as that. But it also helps to combine that one with my inner child of what I experience. So, we go into complementary functions. And then once I connect that and raise that up, that can allow me to get to truly cooperative relationships and situations. Semen retention is going to get us through like all these stages, really. But it's how we handle it, right? Because where it gets cut off, that's where all the triggers are coming from. When we're on the higher vibration, we overcome these relapses. So even having sex is relapse. There are people who don't count it, but then you're still much higher levels to go. When we're dealing with that respect level, the person can choose to enter a relationship because they see the woman's heart, but then we're still not at that level where we see this woman as like an actual person, and the woman won't see the man as like the actual man of spiritual guidance. It's just this can be your relationship. At least it's not a situationship. Second stage sounds like a situationship. Sometimes it is a situationship though, and in the third stage. But when you get to the fourth stage, you're truly able to be in that relationship with that person. But if you have sex with them, like because there's respect there, you're at least controlling in the third stage how often you guys are weakening each other. But in the fourth stage, you know really when and where and how and why you would lower your energy. Because and when we talk about higher vibrations, once you bypass the competitiveness, you're in your light again. So it's all about living in the light, being in the light. And, you know, this is where you have a more spiritual existence. Mind you, these 8 functions I just mentioned are literally all equally spiritual. Intuition versus sensation. Intuition doesn't have to be more spiritual than sensation. We often hear spirituality as, oh, so this person likes to meditate. They must be real spiritual, right? They like to put patterns. They like to predict the future. Or this person is like that's real spiritual, right? Versus somebody being an athlete, not being spiritual because they're just getting into their body, or they're just, they're getting into the flesh. And, you know, it really depends on your background, but I'd like to definitely clarify that all things are given with purpose. You can meditate, and meditation is going to give you a clear view of where you're headed and what you're manifesting, but that doesn't make it spiritual. You could be trying to manifest something very worldly, like manifesting a bunch of money, manifesting an encounter, manifesting a place to be at. Just because you're tapping into what you don't see right in front of you doesn't mean you're serving a higher purpose. This is where we get to the 9th function, which isn't really it is a function, but you can be seen as the totality of everything you do. The spirit, the 9th chakra, your halo. You're dealing with how you approach God. Really, you're dealing with whether you're dealing with faith or you're dealing with dogma. You know, faith, you can utilize your belief and tap in and get to a point beyond your awareness and beyond what your physical circumstances. This is beyond your intuition. This is beyond what you're sensing, right? But then dogma is like you're just dead set and locked on it, regardless of whatever it is that you're supposed to do, whatever it is that you learn is supposed to do. When you try to make yourself God as opposed to actually being God, you're trying to affirm it like you're God and control the process, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Controlling the process versus actually taking part in the process. And so when we're dealing with, like, you know, the body, for example, or memory, this is, people use very common sense notions for life. Like, hey man, people bought those bracelets because they saw someone else buy it, and then so they wanted to be accepted by them. It's a very basic thing, right? Sometimes that happens. But accepting that is spiritual because you're accepting reality as what it is. You got to remember, anything on a 3-dimensional plane doesn't have to make you earthbound. It's how you approach it. If you understand that everything physical is also a representation. Uh-huh. So when we understand whether the Sri Yantra is a symbol of everything, or you have language and words written down, physicality is spiritual as long as you engage it in the way you're supposed to. Going to work, you're a construction worker. Jesus was said to be a carpenter, modern day construction worker. It's like your earthly duties, but it's spiritual as long as you are doing it, because you sleep in a house. A house is a metaphor of the mind, right? You organize your house, you can organize your mind. You're doing well in your house. Like, you're doing what needs to be done, but you're aware that that is not the only reason why you do it. Just like you can meditate or put a bunch of patterns together and not follow through with the plan. That's not very spiritual, just because you gain this awareness. But everything is equally. So I just like to make that announcement of sensory versus intuitive, and how it's really all spiritual. You're not more spiritual than somebody because you see the meaning in one thing, but also if you go follow through and do it, you're also being spiritual. But if you do something without any care for what it means, or if you think of something and you just don't do it, then you're equally non-spiritual, because you're not connecting to the representation of everything as we're going through it. Our life is not without purpose, right? I mean, it reminds me of this topic, like, we hear the anima and the animus, the men and the women. Why would it matter if you're a man? Why would it matter if you're a woman? It doesn't, right? Because we all have minds. Every men and women have these personality type. I'm an INFP. This is more commonly a mentality, a personality type that a woman would have. But that doesn't mean that I have to be more feminine than another woman. Something I was forgetting to mention was when I mentioned the third and fourth functions being more feminine than the first and second functions. Personality Hacker worked with this guy named Dario Nardi who connected types to EEG machines to find out that those who were more analytically focused on their two functions were more gravitated more towards making testosterone, like in their brain, right? And then people who were more analytically focused or on their third and fourth functions were more predisposed towards creating estrogen. So that supported my original hypothesis, which is amazing to hear that. So, and that was just me using like common sense is how can you be masculine if you're not aware of what you're commanding? You're just out there, because you need to logically understand all the stuff that you don't like, or you're going to accept what you actually know, your actual skills. And then a woman would submit to that as what you do in your relationship while you guys maintaining what you do. I mean, there's a lot of cultures that'll say the effective one is the masculine one because they make the money or they're the ones who, they make the most money, right? They're the ones who handle all the details and pressures, but pressures come in many forms. So mentioning the testosterone aspect and the estrogen aspect, in third dimension, some would think, well, like it was this girl. She mentioned that like she didn't think it even matters if you're a man or a woman because in the higher dimensions it's just consciousness. But I like to remember back to the reasons for lower dimensions. They're all symbologies of higher dimensions. They all have a reason. There's a reason why you were born as a woman. There's a reason why you're born as a man. There's a reason why you go through these lessons. What you do with them, hey, that's up to you. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's not up to you. I just find that being a man, making more testosterone is why I look like a man. There's a reason for using that energy and getting what I would like to get out of life. There's symbologies behind everything. And so just because something's at a higher dimension doesn't mean that it makes all the lower dimensions insignificant. I would say that higher dimension possibly chose the lower dimension for a certain alignment for something to happen. It's something to think about. So I like to tell people, let's just reflect on what works. Like, what shows the work? Anybody can fake something. Anybody can fake being healthier and all that. But when you go through your trials, real recognizes real. And you can tell when, somebody's giving you the whole truth, whether they're working with you more, whether you can directly apply it.